Song is so good. Oh, this is darkening. Stay bright. There we go. So today, because I've been talking about this all the time, almost as though this was a given. But I guess today's chapter that I read and today's devotion is sort of about why pay attention to the Bible anyway. And I kind of like the thing I was reading today. Kind of led to it through an interesting path that I hadn't quite considered before, other than just like attending to how historical records line up with many sequences, and therefore a secular conglomeration of historical documents can therefore support the non-secular conglomeration of historical documents. And instead, it just came to it through Christ. Examining the person of Christ, since obviously the New Testament would be the most recently written portion, and certainly the early portions of it were written in the in the lifetimes of those. Actually, a lot of the New Testament was written in the lifetimes of those who knew Christ. They were getting on in years, but they would still be around. And really, to a degree, I've often said that, like, the actual swell and move and toss and growth of Christianity kind of speaks on its own in some degree. You know what I mean? First of all, you have multiple historical accounts of this man who came and lived a life, and it was written not with great amount of skill or persuasion. I think John's got some skills in it, but the other Gospels aren't tremendously flowery or elaborate or heavy on the salesmanship. So you look at that, and then you look at how almost every world religion has been coerced, or has coerced by truth, I would say, to accept this Christ, this Jesus, as an important figure. So then you look at him and go, okay, well, some Jesus existed, and here are the historical documents we have of written of him that assert to be eyewitness accounts. And so you look at who he was, and you look at how he spoke truth, and you can live, and I have lived in the truth of what he spoke, and found that to be as yet infallible. So for me, he's kind of the entry point for why to read any of it, or to consider any of it holy. In that he, in his life, came, said what he said, did what he did, said what he was going to do, did what he was going to do, and in all the accounts of what he did was a fantastically humble and incisive and loving individual, and then claimed that he would rise from the dead, and he invoked both the rebuilding of the temple as a metaphor for this, and Jonah, the other seafaring fella. Jonah in the whale, Noah in the ark. Artie's always singing accentuate the positives. That they're oft conjoined in my head. Not conjoined like Siamese twins, but you know what I mean. And then says that he went and was slain and was sacrificing himself for the glory of God, for the joy of God, which is hard to understand. And that he would offer himself up as a scapegoat, as a sacrifice for our sins, which was all very hard to understand. That's the great thing I love about the Gospels. They're like, and everyone was very confused, and people were very confused about what in the world he was talking about. And he said he would return, and they didn't really get that either. They were like, no, well, you mean we'll remember you. You'll be there in our hearts. You'll live on in our hearts and memories, I'm sure is what he means. But these same eyewitness accounts say that he did what he said, and he rose from the dead. And I know the skeptics out there who believe in no miracles, A, I'm sad that you haven't experienced any. And B, that really is the crux of the thing. You know, all the other things, you're like, wow, you were blessed, you were a healer, you were a wise man, you know, a teacher, a rabbi, a sensei, whatever. But then he claims this ridiculous miracle, and is received in the same fashion of, what? This is a put on. Did Jesus have a brother who looked exactly like him? What's going on here? And everyone was quite still skeptical. But when seeing it with their own eyes and believing it to be true, and having it being proven, putting their hands in the scars, you know, in the wounds, and they were inflamed. And Christianity really, obviously, was the seeds were sown previous to that, but it was born in that moment of those mortal men witnessing a resurrected Jesus, this man who had came and spoke truth and spoke with such authority about God's desires, and spoke not for his own glory, that he might be aggrandized and live in wealth and fame, but spoke, he said, for the glory of God, and came back from the dead. And from that moment, Christianity pretty much was aflame, and that is what fueled the zeal, especially of early Christianity. I mean, the level of martyrdom in early Christianity is astonishing. That nigh on all the disciples were put to death by crowds, stoning, crucifixion. Peter, I think, was crucified upside down on an X-shaped cross or something ridiculous. Just chased out of towns, beaten, jailed, imprisoned. And then that further, historical proof of that resurrected Christ is, Paul says, Christ appeared to him in a blinding light. That this Jesus, and Paul's whole gig, again, historically, by his own accounts and by other accounts, was to persecute Christians. He was a learned man, a scribe and a Pharisee, high up in the old pecking order. And he said Christ appeared to him, basically said, stop what you're doing. This is truth. I am truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Go, feed my sheep. And this completely flip-flopped this learned man's existence. And that was probably the latest, the last appearance of that resurrected Christ. And so not only the historical nature of it, but then the way that weighed out through history. Again, this man who was completely opposed in all reason. Come on, really? A resurrected human being? You guys obviously stole him and stashed him somewhere and are now just faking it so no one thinks you're fools. This man turned and became pretty much the most powerful, speaker of early Christianity. And from there, the groundswell of a movement that is now spread almost across the entire earth. That's funny, because I haven't even really gotten to the Old Testament. But maybe I'll do that tomorrow. This is another cliffhanger. Because even for me, obviously I don't come from a Judaic tradition culturally, but Jesus' words come from that tradition. And his words specifically, Christ is real. I'll tell you. Sorry, he just is. Not sorry about it, really. I'm quite overjoyed. But he spoke specifically and deeply to the paths of the Old Testament and the words of God that were laid down before him, before he ever came. But I'll get that tomorrow, so this is another cliffhanger. Da 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 da.